As donors begin to put pressure on economic development projects to design responses to the COVID-19, I thought I'll share with you what my ideas are in terms of three elements that I think should guide the thinking around designing responses to the COVID-19 situation, especially for our private sector partners. Hello and welcome to DevTV. At DevTV, we profile ideas, innovations, and individuals doing amazing things to reduce poverty around the world. Today's episode is about market systems development projects, especially those that are being pressured to design responses to the COVID-19 situation. So what I thought I'll do is share my ideas as far as three key elements that I think should guide our thinking in terms of how to or what the design of our responses should be. In my view, the most important aspect of this is really to do an assessment of what the impact has been on our private partner. And in doing that, there are three areas that I think we should look at. And so bear with me as I shall guide you through my presentation. So as you can see, this is entirely focused on market system development projects, especially those that are working with partners, private sector partners. And what I'm about to present to you covers not only large companies, but really talk interchangeably about large, small and medium-sized enterprises that we may partner to bring our interventions to life. So the three factors then that I thought would be really important for us to focus on are these: products and services. And when I talk about products and services, I'm thinking in terms of the value proposition. What was the original value proposition that the partner was presenting to the market? And how does that benefit our beneficiaries? Has anything changed in terms of that product or service or the value proposition that's been presented? And what are those elements that have changed? And how do we support this private actor to do better or to cope with the impact of COVID-19? The other is customer. Now, I'll go on to explain this further. We really need to try and focus on to determine whether or not the customer that this private sector actor partner is focused on will change or will be the same. And then customer channel. For me, this is the most exciting aspect of the responses that we're designing and the impact that COVID-19 has had on private sector actor. Customer channel. That, I think, is where the meat of this conversation is. But anyway, let's go back to the top, product and services. So first of all, what has been the impact? And I think we've talked about this in one of the videos that I made earlier and with some of the interviews that I've done with people. We really need to try and focus on the company and the company business model and how that business model has changed. What exactly has changed in terms of the product and services? We need to really think in terms of is it a generic service or a generic product that now requires a tailored services because of the current situation, because of the lockdown. So there's a transitional period, and then there's the post-COVID period. The responses covers both the transition period, meaning that during lockdown, what is it that happens to this particular business? Are they going through some sort of pivoting in terms of the product? Are they going through some pivoting in terms of the service and how to focus the service? So we really need to think about this in very specific terms, and the businesses may not be thinking in these terms, but we as economic development professionals should begin to really focus on the product, the services, and what the impact of the lockdown has been, but post-impact, how would that product and service change? And how would people potentially respond to these services given the condition and given the condition that will follow the COVID-19 lockdown? So generally, I made a point here just saying general service to tailored services. This is just an example. That you can have, if you have a business that distributes things generally to whomever it is that will come and pick up the product or enjoy the service. Does it now mean that because of the situation that we're in, that business has tailored the services or the product to particular customers? And what are the implications of that in terms of resources that's required and the time that it would take to change from a generic business to a tailored service business or product? Now, order fulfillment rather than retailer, I'm thinking in terms of micro enterprises. I mean, in terms of small kiosk with these people, since these people are not able to do business at this period, would they now become, because of their proximity to the customers, to the end customers, would they now become an intermediary between the end customer and, say, a supermarket? So they would take orders from the end customers, because they are closer to the end customer, and fulfill it from the supermarket, or maybe a trader, an agro dealer, for instance, may have to provide sort of like an intermediary service between an agro agent and the big agro dealer. So what has happened to these services? How has this really changed? Now, in order to design a response, you really need to find out the structure of the market, what has happened in terms of the relationships that happens between market actors, and how does that impact on the type of product or the type of service that your private sector actor that your private sector actor supports or provides, or services the product that your private sector actor provides. So, new products and services. Now, yes, it is possible that the impact has been so devastating to the point in which that the private sector actor will have to change the service. So that's a major pivot. Then you really need to help the customer in terms of profitability, market intelligence, comparison of different potential areas that the business can go into, and how that will hopefully sustain the partner going forward. But all of this all of this is dependent on whether or not the business now, be it because the service is changing, because the product is changing, because the manner in which all of that is done is changing, does that still fit your intervention? Will your intervention objective be achieved given all of these changes? So these are things that we really need to try and think about when we're designing responses, or at least intervention that will look at how your project responds to COVID-19. The other aspect that I thought is really important as well is customer. Now, most likely, you will have businesses that serve individuals, and now because of the COVID-19 lockdown and because of the restrictions, the movement restrictions, people cannot just come into your store and or come into your premises to enjoy your product or service. What might be possible is that this individual services that you offer can then be offered in terms of group. So things are delivered to a particular neighborhood or a particular point in a neighborhood or in a remote area where individuals can go and pick up or enjoy the services that your partner provides. And it can be the other way around. It can be that you're providing groups. An agro dealer, for instance, may be providing training to farmers in a group, but because of the restrictions, that now has to be individually tailored or individually delivered. So these are changes that potentially can happen. These are changes that we ought to look at when we are designing responses, rather than actually throw away the intervention in itself. It's important for us to really try and see how we can adjust the business model for these partners to respond appropriately to COVID-19 so they remain in business. But more importantly for us as economic development professionals, is for that partner to be able to continue to serve our beneficiaries in the way that we have designed the original intervention. So these are simple amendments that I think we ought to make in terms of designing COVID-19 responses. Now, so we've looked at the product value proposition. We looked at the customer. The customer may change from individual to group, from individual to corporate. But the more exciting thing is the channel. How the customer, how the market actor, or the private sector partner meet or reaches the customer. So how does that happen? This here is the most exciting opportunity that I see in terms of COVID-19 responses. So yes, new intermediaries. So this whole situation, the lockdown and post-lockdown, because things certainly will change in the way we do business after all of these restrictions have been lifted. There are opportunities that's been presented that I think we, in terms of designing an intervention to help our private sector partners, we really need to try and focus on potentially new intermediaries. By that, I mean new supporting functions. An example of that is what I put here. So motorbike taxis become mini distributors. So one of the things that I've seen in Uganda, where I'm at the moment, is that motorbike vendors that usually carry, or taxis that usually carry passengers, are now fulfilling orders for households and for some businesses. So they go and they become a mini distributor of goods to these large companies. So this is certainly an important aspect that I think we really need to try and examine and see whether or not there are opportunities that we can explore, we can guide our private sector partner to really begin to think about. And the other obviously is that, as I mentioned earlier, services will now become personalized. It appears it's becoming personalized because of the situation. So if I want to consume or order anything from to a supermarket, an input company, or some sort of goods or service that I need, it has to fit exactly what I want, when I want it, how I want it. And that's the nature of what has happened to business, or the way we do business. So it's important now to begin to design interventions to capture some of these opportunities, introducing new supporting functions, introducing new intermediaries. These new intermediaries may not increase the prices or increase the cost of doing business. The likeliness is that it will, but it will be marginal. And that needs to be taken advantage of, which means that we'll get a whole lot more people participating in the market system, depending on the market system that we're exploring. So these are ideas that I think we really need to think about. I'm particularly excited about videography, because a lot of the things that we're doing at the moment, so extension officers, for instance, are very specialist or are experts in agronomy or agriculture in general. And these are the people that we have, these are the people that we're selling the business of private extension services to. But videographers now can become private extension service providers. How? The videographer partners with these experts, or perhaps even buy the services of the experts, record different record different snippets of video explaining exactly how to do or how to practice this good agricultural practice. And this is now broken down into snippets that will be pushed out to farmers through their mobile phone in little 2-3 minutes videos. So these are opportunities. So videographers can now become extension service or private extension service providers, and that's happening as we speak. Service providers to extension officers. So rather than the other way around, rather than the videographer becoming an extension officer, which is possible, as I've just described, it's a new business model. Extension officers can employ the services of videographer. So they now perform a particular function in the way to package this knowledge that, and this video that potentially can be a lot more effective when it's passed on to farmers. So videographers can become service providers for extension agents. Videographers can become extension service providers. And so these are new supporting functions that I think we really need to think about when we're thinking in terms of how we respond to COVID-19. It's important that we go beyond our usual and begin to think more widely about adopting tools and technology and services that may enhance some of the things that we do in economic development, especially when it comes to agriculture. Supporting function for input companies. What I mean by this is essentially that input companies right now still have to distribute their input. Unfortunately, they cannot provide the embedded services that comes with this import, or at least the embedded services that we may be pushing. So it's then important for us to use the tools, use the services that may not ordinarily be used in agriculture, to begin to infuse that in the way input companies design their services, or at least the embedded services, and how this can be delivered to farmers. I'm talking mostly on agriculture here because I think that's where the opportunity really is exciting. So, new channels, remote provision. So, in very limited cases, you can have online training. So you can you can do a video call with a lot of farmers or micro enterprises, providing the training through WhatsApp. This is expensive for them, but there are ways the project can support this sort of service in buying the data, or bulk buying the data, or providing data in some way to the beneficiaries, so the trainer can provide this training through video participation. And there are ways in which to design the training, a remote style training, that will really benefit your beneficiaries. Snippet videos, I think I mentioned this a bit earlier. This is already happening, at least in Uganda, where trainings are broken down into 1, 2, 3 minutes videos that's sent to farmers, to micro enterprises, and they will have to watch it, and in completing 1, 2, 3 minutes video, they're prompted to do the next module for the training. So this is already happening, and these are the things that we really can begin to think about and expand the scope of our interactions and the services that we bring into delivering economic development project and helping our partner survive the lockdown and present new and better opportunities for post COVID-19. Same thing here, telephone orders, tech tools. There are a lot of tools that really we don't appear to use very much in economic development. We are driven mostly by private sector actors, or we design our interventions to be driven by private sector actors. It is then important for us to explore other sectors and see how we can use some of the services that they have to help us do, or at least engage with our private sector actors so they can do this business and do the business better. Customer relationship management software. Very few businesses use this tool, but it's an important tool. And it's especially important now because any partner, any private sector company that really have a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, can continuously communicate with its clients even during this lockdown period because it's all remote, it's all online, it's all through telephone, email messages, and so on. So we really need to find a way to adopt this, a different level of our partnership. The large corporations, they should have some, but if they don't, it's probably an idea to introduce it. Even the medium-sized companies, the micro enterprises as well need to begin to think in terms of designing a database of their customers, how to reach out to customers, and how this can potentially lead to growth of their businesses and consequently their income. These are areas that we really need to try and focus our attention. There are simple spreadsheet that could be used, or even some of these phones have contact management that can be used as a CRM. That's already happening in some of the projects I'm involved with here in Uganda. Broadcasting to customers, as I mentioned earlier, you can broadcast through WhatsApp, you can broadcast to text messages, audio messages, pushing ideas, knowledge, and announcements out to customers through their mobile telephone. Mobile telephone penetration is incredible these days. So, and most of this telephone that has been produced now are smart telephone. Even the very basic telephone play audio files. So these are areas that we really need to try and look at and see how we can use these services to support our private sector actors to continue to do business and do business better. Maybe slightly pivot from the way they were doing business before or the type of business that they were doing before to bring our intervention to life and to make it a lot more impactful. Communication tools. Some we can WhatsApp video, as I mentioned earlier. I've mentioned that several times. Skype, Zoom, and other sort of communication tools are now very, very important for us to begin to incorporate into our economic development interventions. So when these tools have always been there, but now we really need to try and see how these tools can be used in our intervention in supporting our partners to begin to reach their customers and hopefully begin to design products and services that will suit their customers. As a matter of fact, some of these telecommunication tools can be used to tailor services to particular beneficiaries. So it's important for us as economic development professionals to investigate these tools, to begin to think in terms of how these tools can be applied to what we do as economic development professionals. This is very important. So, and I think this is it's a devastating time for most people, but it presents us with opportunities in economic development to think differently, to begin to bring in tools and ideas that potentially alien to what we do currently in economic development, to really begin to focus on how to help our private sector partners remain in business and thrive post COVID-19. So what have we discussed? So essentially, in my view, there are three aspect of a business that I think we need to concentrate on as we respond to COVID-19. Donors are pushing for a really good intervention that will continue to deliver the objective of the projects. And it is time that market system development projects use the tools that are already available, use them differently, be creative in the way we incorporate these tools into the intervention delivery and to the service delivery of our private sector partners. These are the tools that done very well in other sectors. So it's time now to bring them into economic development and begin to use them to create expansion and inclusion in all the intervention that we design in market system project. These are my ideas. These are things that I'm thinking about, or these are things that I've seen, and these are things that I've suggested to some of my clients. I'm suggesting that deeper, greater exploration of technology tools, different channels that's worked in other sectors can now be incorporated into the way we do things in economic development. And it is effective. It is proven to be effective. So these are my ideas. Please leave comment below in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next Sunday, 1 p.m. GMT. Thank you.